Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. What's good, everybody? It's your boy BQ and your boy TW here with the Cool Factor Mailbag Show. We debuted this last week, seeing how you guys dig it. It's going to help us shorten the Cool Factor podcast down a little bit by taking the mailbag segment and putting it on this podcast. So, as I mentioned last week, the best way to get involved with this is the Impact Lounge engagement group on Facebook. So check that out every week before a show. I give opportunity to send questions. So the majority is going to come from there. That is the priority, and then we'll scour Twitter and YouTube when we can. So we're going to get into this real quick. This is a no BS podcast. We're just going to get right into these questions. Again, it is your boy BQ and your boy TW here. If you're listening on YouTube, please consider hitting that subscribe button. Give the video a thumbs up. And, of course, leave your thoughts in the comments to all these questions. So we're just going to jump right into this. Randy Adams, he said, do you think the Digital Media Championship will go the way of the Grand Championship given how it's been presented so far? So you want to go
Not
first?
now. Definitely not now. I think that I say this all the time that we never appreciate what we have with Impact while we have it. But we look back on it years later and go, man, they had something good at that time, right? And the same thing will happen when we look back on this Digital Media Championship era. Jordynne Grace is doing some of the best work of her career. Probably the best work of her career right now. I keep wanting to say Zack Ryder. Matt Cardona, as the Digital Media Champion right now, is doing his heel gimmick with Chelsea Green, and it's a lot of fun to watch. You know what I mean? It's a lot. And just from what I've seen on the indies, it looks like a lot of fun to watch. And I think if he can bring that same kind of intensity and buzz to Impact Wrestling, it's going to be, it's going to be huge. You know what I mean? It's going to be absolutely huge. And this will be a time when we as Impact fans will look back and be like, oh man, that was a lot of fun. So I'm not thinking about where will they go next with it. I'm just thinking that right now they've got the title on a hot property. And yeah, I mean, like, I think that, so the cool thing about this right now is that title is being taken to all types of indie shows and being defended there, which I think is a great thing for Impact Wrestling. So that puts it in a whole different stratosphere from the Grand Championship already. And yeah, I think they're on to a good thing, and I think it'll continue to go that way, at least for the foreseeable future, with especially with Matt Cardona as champion.
If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would say 100% it's going the direction of the Grand Championship. And I said a couple times on various podcasts, I said the wrestlers don't care, the fans don't care, the company doesn't care. But now that Cardona is carrying it, I think it's going to be a lot more interesting. He's going to make it seem like a bigger deal than it is. And, hopefully we actually see some real title defenses on the digital platforms, and even if it's at an indie show, we see it on the digital. Like this month's or this week, I should say, their digital exclusive was VSK versus Johnny Jiggle Thighs. It was some rando from the indies, man.
Was his name really Johnny Jiggle Thighs?
No, it wasn't.
Oh,
that name would get over. Yeah, so I mean, who cares? You know what I mean? So hopefully we get more digital media championship stuff. That's what it's meant for, and we're not seeing it so far. Donald Hill said, do you think Impact, I know you'll like this question, do you think Impact can benefit from some type of secondary show where they can put the spotlight on some of the lower tier talent like Alicia Edwards, Raj Singh, and people like that to just get some wins and shine?
Well, I mean, it sounds like you're talking about Explosion, right?
Right.
And nobody really cared about that show. But, and I know you were alluding to this, they could use a show for the Knockouts. I think that the time is right. They don't have necessary. Listen, I think they have a diverse set of characters with the knockouts. And I think, like I said, man, an hour wrestling show is a beautiful thing that we don't see a lot. And I think that could be a great opportunity for Impact to really show that they're emphasizing women's wrestling and gain some support from a fan base that nobody is really doing that for. Like, we know that the WoW show is out there, but Impact is an established brand. They got some names that people know, and yeah, man, I think that Impact could and should do a show for the knockouts.
All right, hell yeah. Um, you're right. Basically that's kind of what I don't want to say that's what Explosion was. That was what Explosion was to us in the U.S. But within the company, that show was strictly we need a show for the overseas markets, and Explosion did very well overseas. To us in the US, we're like, who the hell cares about this show? Why don't they do something better with it? But it served the purpose from what the company really wanted to do with it, and it was I believe the revenue from it overseas, I was told, was really good. So we want to see something like that because AEW does have AEW Dark and Dark Elevation, and it's more beneficial for a wrestler to appear on that show than Impact a lot of times. Unfortunately, there's a benefit to getting some wrestlers some wins. You can see them hit a finisher. I say it all the time. There's wrestlers on this roster we don't know what their finisher is because they don't win, or it's roll ups and shit like that. And I brought it up a couple of weeks ago. I said, "Do you know what Alicia Edwards' finisher was?" You had no idea. I was like, "It's the flatliner." But no one would know that because she doesn't beat anybody. She does use the move in a match, but it never gets a pin. So
Right.
but there's like Raj Singh. I don't know how he would win a match. I don't have a effing clue. So there
Great
are a
point.
few dudes. Um, all right, Minor Lopez, he gave a couple of questions here. Could Impact benefit from doing quarterly surveys as to what cities fans would like Impact to travel to? If so, would we see an increase basically in attendance and the shows, attendance at the shows, and improvement in viewership? So he was asking, should they survey what cities, you know, they should be appearing in? Because if you think about where they're at right now, the we talked about this, Florida, and then you got New Orleans, and like really random markets. And there's probably a reason for it. Maybe the mask mandates are very loose there. You know what I mean? So that's a possibility. That's what it is. But what do you think about them actually, reaching out, doing the research to the fans?
Um, I think having more data is never a bad thing, right? Like, having more data gives you more opportunity to, they might find out that, I don't know, somewhere in the Midwest is, a town of people that is just rabid for Impact Wrestling. And if you were to find something like that, then yeah, that could be a gold mine. But I think, you got to use the metrics that you have in place. And listen, I've been saying for the longest time that I think, Impact should just jump and take some swings and try to play some bigger buildings. And if we're being honest, if we're looking at some of the seating charts for the on sales for this current tour, people aren't necessarily rabid about the product. So they got to keep building. They got to keep building. But I will say this though, I like the idea of playing bigger buildings and do some things. Like move people's seats around to make it look more full and for television and do some sort of tricks, whatever you can do to just try and present it, make it look more full, and just keep putting on good shows. And I say it all the time, Impact is fighting a perception problem, and that's their biggest enemy. That's their biggest enemy. And so having getting data, from where people are more interested in it is a great idea. It's truly a great idea. And in a perfect world, there would be a town that has a big venue and a base of fans that really loves to support wrestling, like Philly or Chicago or something like that. But yeah, Impact's they really gotta fix their brand name. They gotta make sure that their name gets recognized as being synonymous with good wrestling content.
Yeah, and I tell you what, I think they have to treat it like an independent show a little bit more rather than a worldwide brand, because I have my local independent shows here in St. Louis, and they do very well, and I'm always very familiar with the show. I know it's coming. Like when it's Glory Pro, and there's a couple other ones, but Glory Pro is a bigger one here. Like when they have a show, I know who's going to be there. I know who's wrestling. It's never a mystery to me. It that news gets to me every single time. So I think there has to be a better use of targeted social media rather than just, hey, we're putting a tweet out. Maybe they do this. I'm gonna say they don't. But as far as like putting the extra money towards Facebook ads and Twitter ads are expensive as shit, and Instagram ones are too. Facebook is pretty cheap. But to put ads out there that go specifically to wrestling fans in that area, I would say that they don't do that. I'm because I've been fairly local to their shows before and haven't gotten anything. Like I get shows for Indiana. Indianapolis is 3.5 hours away, and I get targeted, and I do go out there sometimes. I get targeted traffic from them, so that's why I'm gonna say they don't do that because I've been closer than that to their shows before. I didn't get anything for Bound for Glory, and I live in Illinois, so um, I do think there has to be improvement on that end. But I think you definitely want to reach out and ask the fans, like the fans are gonna give you the data too.
Right.
I'm sure they look at their TV data. They have to and say, okay, these are our strong states and markets. They have to. I'd be shocked if they didn't, but I do agree that these the ones. I mean, I don't agree. I'm the one who said it. I agree with myself, I guess. The cities they're doing right now, it's great that they're expanding. They're very random though, but I guess they know better than I do. So he also asked Shop. I'm I'm happy to answer this one. Shop Impact needs improvements. What kind of contests or sales could be done to promote their online store, and what other changes could be made in order for this to become fans' first choice of merch? So I'm going to answer this first because this is something kind of on the social media marketing side. And I hate to bring up the AEW comparisons, but the way that they push their merch is second to none. And then we've even talked about, I don't know what WWE does now, but I do remember when I watched religiously that I found myself ordering after almost every episode of Raw because they had some kind of deal that I just had to, like I had to do it. Um, and Impact doesn't really do that. And one thing that AEW does is on the days of their pay-per-views, they don't do this every time, but they do it pretty often. It's full gear. Uh, Everything's discounted 20% today for the pay-per-view, and then they get a spike. And on Twitter, I said, "Why doesn't Impact do stuff like that?" And people do, "Oh, they do. They put out pay-per-view specific merch." I'm like, "That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about on those pay-per-view days where your traffic is the absolute highest. There should be deals flooding Twitter, flooding the pay-per-view, and on episodes of Impact, like order today, and it's what WWE did what WWE did on Raw is that one week it would be free shipping, the next it would be a 2-for-1, the next it would be a percentage discount, and the no matter what the deal was, it was usually about the same. You were paying the same. It was just that they worded it in so many different ways that you just got excited about it. That's good marketing. You might say it's $5 off this week, and the next week you say it's 25% off. They're the same thing, but that's how you get people's attention. So
Right.
I do, the Impact 20 merchandise is great. I think I posted a graphic on Twitter, and some people agreed with me, some didn't. I posted the graphic. They put black T-shirts with a black background. Of all the times they needed to use red, they went a predominantly black background. And I no shit scrolled past that graphic 4 times before I realized there were shirts on there. Like I saw the Impact 20 logo, but I didn't see the actual outline of the shirt until I kind of like stopped. So it didn't
But I
grab my
also
attention.
feel like there should be a whole Impact 20 marketing campaign. You know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, for as much as this company loves to dip into the history of TNA, like, if ever there was a time, right? Like, my goodness, this is the time. And yeah, man, like, I don't know. Like, you know, like, use what you got, right? Like, there's a perfect opportunity right there to, dig up all your video library and this and that and the other thing. um and yeah, like, but I don't feel like there's been a concentrated marketing campaign around Impact 20. Like, we see the shirts, we see the logo, but they haven't really been pushing Impact 20.
Yeah, they haven't. I mean, they have a little bit. I'm not going to say they haven't at all, but they put out one. I saw one deal that popped up, and it was, they church it up to where like, get 5 DVDs and this for this price. They're really just trying to get rid of inventory. That's all that is, and it's always the really old stuff. Um, and I brought this up a couple years ago. I don't remember what the match was, but I'm gonna fast forward to now, and let's say Bound for Glory, Deonna Purrazzo versus Mickey James. Like, you do a marketing campaign with a Bound for Glory shirt, of the one you want to win. There's a Mickey James shirt. There's the Deonna Purrazzo shirt. You know, order it now. It comes with a free autographed 8x10 of the wrestler, and I've also talked about. I don't want to call it an auction, but say there are 20 signed 8x10s of the match graphic by Deonna Purrazzo and Mickey James, and there's only 100 available, 200 available. Like, it's easy. They can knock it out on their end in 10 minutes, and it would sell immediately. And you could say they're $70 each, and they would sell immediately. But it's just very, very traditional marketing when it comes to the merch. In AEW, every single time during an episode, they flash brand new shirts every episode on the bottom. Every episode, you know. And then also, they take better advantage of what happens organically on the show. Like, send Hook. That was super organic. That was just something CM Punk said. Send Hook. And
Right.
then all of a sudden Hook wrestles a few weeks later and Tad's like, I sent Hook. And it just stuck in people's heads, and now it's a hashtag, it's a thing, it's a shirt. So sometimes you got to take advantage of what's going on the show, what happens organically, not just standard, hey, here's the new Eddie Edwards shirt. You know, um, I mean, for example, I would never buy it, but D'Lo with the what the hell? Oh my goodness! Like, I found those annoying. But if it was something that damn you Moose, I found them annoying. But if it was something that really would have caught on, AEW would have made that merchandise. So got anything else on that one?
No, man, I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it.
All right, Donald Hill. This kind of goes back to the early question. Said, since did I already answer one? Yeah, sent another question. Since Cardona is the DMC champ, should he start defending it with open challenge rules against roster members or top indie guys in one-offs?
Um, I think I think Impact can certainly use to increase its digital media presence. So, I like the idea of going to different indie shows and doing the one-offs. I was never a big fan of Impact having such non-exclusive deals with their talent because, again, it's always like, what can you see on Impact that you can't see anywhere else? And there's really nothing. So, so I'm a fan of making use of, if your stuff, if your talent, if your titles are going to be uh at these indies, at least find some way to get it on your TV or social media or whatever. So yeah, I like the idea of doing, indie one-offs. You know what I mean? Like, we might be able to get to see some matches that we would not normally see under an Impact banner that way.
Yeah, totally agreed. So I think you hit everything on the head there. So I don't want to say too much, but I think it would. I think an open challenge format of indie wrestlers coming to Impact would be good. The problem is they don't usually bring someone in for one-offs. When I say one-offs, I mean like one single match. if they bring someone in, even as a jobber, a lot of times they have multiple matches for them. If they bring someone in, they usually make it worth their while. Like, hey, we're booking you for 3 matches, and I'm bringing up like Killer Kelly or something like that. When she came in, like she did multiple matches. She didn't just do the tournament and leave. So I don't really see them bringing in independent talent for one match, but it would be exciting for him to do similar to what the TNT title was. It's still an open challenge belt, but they are doing a horrible job of painting that picture right now. It's more like some random person is just like, hey, I'm wrestling you next week, uh, rather than how they did it with Cody. But if it was some kind of open challenge belt with indie talent, I think it would be good. James Campbell asks, who would you like to see Masha Slamovich feud with once she's done with her squash matches? So right now she's doing squash matches. They're lasting maybe a minute. She had a really long match as a babyface at Knockouts Knockdown, a couple matches, and now she's a heel, which she should be. So I don't know, who could we see her actually have a feud with? I would say, for me personally, the one that makes sense is probably Lady Frost. I think that would work very much. I think her first match versus an Impact talent should be Alicia Edwards because she's technically a jobber, but that's kind of how you can move up the ladder a little bit. Okay, now you got to wrestle a knockout. Granted, she's still going to win, but I would go that route, and then I would have. I think Frost would be what makes the most sense.
Yeah, I do kind of like that idea. If Lady Frost is a babyface, and when you mentioned Lady Frost, my first thought was, well, is she a babyface? And then I thought about it, and I was like, man, you know what, man? Like, her moonsault is so amazing. People are gonna love her, and they're gonna cheer for her. And I feel like she has like a look where she doesn't necessarily. I feel like she has a look where she could come off as either, like, but without saying anything, right? When she steps through the curtain onto the stage, do you think she's a heel or a babyface? I feel like she could be either. I feel like she really could be either or. And so Impact, I think, needs baby faces, right? Because who are the baby faces? So yes, let's say Lady Frost is a baby face. I think that could be a good first person for her to work with. But I don't really want to beat Lady Frost right now. Like,
Sure.
she really won me over with her
Ultimate
performance
X.
in the Ultimate X match, right?
Yeah.
And so I want to see her. Like, come on, man. There's ways to do this. So I'm not gonna go on a rant or tangent here, but you can say, okay, hey, we want to do Lady Frost and Masha Slamovich. Well, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that 6 weeks from now, and neither of them is gonna lose until then. You know what I mean? So,
Hmm.
like, there's a way to do it where they both come out looking strong, and you don't do it by having one person come off squashes, one person coming off like a strong match, and then one of them has to lose, because then it's like, well, the person who was squashing people, those people were no good, and the person who had a strong showing in a match they didn't win, it's like, well, they're just a loser.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I'm not really ready to see her lose like that too. But I've talked about this before. Frost does heel work on the Indies, and then on NWA, when she was doing that, she was a heel. And at the show I was actually at, I was at one of the NWA tapings. She, people stood up for her to, like, when she made her entrance. They stood up to clap, and she very convincingly was getting in people's faces and walking around, telling them to sit down. Like, what do who the hell are you? And
Right.
it was convincing too. It wasn't like some fake heel shit. So um, it's going to be tough because I've also said that they've struggled in past years of bringing in relative unknowns and figuring out how to book them. They still to this day don't know how to put Alicia Edwards in a match. So I always say Kiera Hogan was the only one that they ever from scratch in the last like 6 or 7 years from scratch. No one knew who it was, and they did something.
Yeah,
Even Tasha
but look
Steelz came from
look how
NWA.
long that took. Look how long it took to do anything with Kiera Hogan.
Yeah,
Like, Kiera Hogan was on that roster for a long time before they did anything with her.
yeah, and it was and Tasha Steelz, she still came from NWA, so she was doing some stuff. Um, Pat Crothamel asked, "Do you see Moose as the one to break Bobby Roode's decade-long record with the world title. And I'm going to add AK Infinity's question here because he did ask this last week and I forgot to get to it. But he had asked who should break Bobby Roode's consecutive days as champion record. So um, basically the same question kind of thrown in there. So
Uh, I like Moose being the person to do it. Moose has been, he's been champion since October. And I think he's been good. Like he's hateable, he's annoying, like he's all the things you want to boo. And also on top of all that stuff, they don't have anybody who it looks like should be beating him. You know what I mean? Like the thing with a guy like just some other guys, let's say maybe like Rich Swann, right? It's like, yeah, we like Rich Swann and Rich Swann's a good wrestler and all that, but you could easily see where a guy like Moose could, smoke Rich Swann. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Moose, there's nobody who you're like, yo, man, like they're just protecting Moose from this guy or that guy because like Moose, he's bigger than everybody else. You know what I mean? Like he's mean and nasty and he seems like the type of person that nobody should be beating for that title anytime soon. Like there's no reason to take it off him. He's not hurting the product as a champion. I think he's a good representative as a champion. And as much as they want to get Josh Alexander into a spot where he feels like the champion, he doesn't yet. He doesn't. And I think Moose is a great pick to, hold that title for a long time and break Bobby Roode's record. Do you know what the record is?
I don't. I used to know what it was. I don't offhand. But I want to say it was in the ballpark of a year.
It's like 200 and something days. I know
Yeah.
it's 200 and something days. I don't know exactly how long it is, but it's like 200 and something days. He had a really good run, by the way. He had a really good run, and I thought, man, I thought they really were on to something with the handoff from Roode to Austin Aries. Like I thought that, Austin Aries was a perfect example of like somebody who gets hot within the company organically because of the matches that he's putting on. And I thought they could have rolled with that a little longer, but they never appeared to be behind Austin Aries as champion. They went right to aces and eights, like as soon as Austin Aries won that title. And I just, they never really gave him a chance as world champion to be the man. And I thought that was a mistake because if we look back on it now, right, like that's right around the time that the wrestling really started shifting to being more about wrestling. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. It's easier to have a long run with a heel champion because Moose is not stale. Moose reinvents himself on a regular basis. And you think about Eddie Edwards' first title run. He's come a long way since, but he was in there cutting the most. And I was in support of Eddie's title run at the time. I was there live for it, but he was cutting the most bland, baby face, knock me down, I'll get right back up. I'm a fighter. Promos that you can. I mean, my God, dude. It was like he was cutting those promos that like when they would show clips sometimes on NXT, like if you dig into the archives and it would have wrestlers, okay, do a promo, and they're just cut this wrestling promo, and then they're like, no,
Right.
no, that's what everybody says. Like that's exactly how he was, and even when he was champion this time around, he just doesn't have like the chops really. Rich Swann doesn't necessarily. It's very Josh Alexander doesn't. So it's hard for a babyface to hold it for a long time. Moose is the most entertaining person on the show right now, I think, and he's the one to do it.
Right.
And you could say he's homegrown. I mean, he was in Ring of Honor before, but I mean, his real momentum and everything has been with Impact. Um, he's completely transformed his body and everything. So I think that they need to break the record. I've brought this up before that WWE wouldn't dare let someone hold a record that left the company on their terms or had a bad take. Like They did. Who had the knockouts? AJ Lee, right? And they
Yeah,
did everything in their power to get because I think Nikki Bella broke it, didn't she?
right.
Yeah, they were.
And often when they do that, it feels like it's being done intentionally to spite the person, right?
Hmm.
Because like Nikki Bella was like the anti AJ Lee. You know what I mean? Like again, AJ Lee was someone who was known for her character and her wrestling and her matches. Nikki Bella was known for her body and her her sometimes I feel like it's unfair to say that's not her character, but it doesn't feel like it's character. I feel like it's just her. You know what I'm saying? Like, like it. This is America, and a lot of times, things that aren't unfair go unchecked because the money is the one making the decisions, and that's the way it is a lot of times in WWE. It's like, okay, we're just gonna accept that because this woman looks like a model and she's got this nice body that she gets to jump the line and we understand why she gets to be the star of the show. You know what I mean? Nobody
Yeah.
asks questions about that. And so everybody's kind of like, well, Nikki Bella, I get it. You know what I mean? And to Nikki Bella's credit, she worked on her wrestling a lot and she got a lot better. She got significantly better at wrestling over her time as a top person. But it's about getting that chance to be a top person and get that development. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
so her long run as champion felt like it had a lot to do with spiting AJ Lee's quote unquote legacy. Um and also because Nikki Bella, she was very let's just say she was bringing things to the table.
Yeah, yeah, man. I think with Bobby Roode, I think Bobby Roode was really hot for a while when he left Impact and he was went to NXT. He was on fire. So Impact, the way Impact operates, they wouldn't dare um get in the way of that. They would rather find a way to benefit from it. So they're posting their Bobby Roode's YouTube clips and doing what they do. And now that he's cooled off significantly, I think it would make some sense to try to do it. But it's hard because people aren't in the company that long. AK Infinity also asked who should break the record for total title reigns, and that's a tough one because again, the wrestlers aren't in the company for very long. I don't know who has the most world title wins in Impact. I can't. Maybe it's Angle or some, I actually have no clue. I couldn't even guess. I don't think they will ever break AJ Styles' record for the exact reason I said. He's hot in WWE. He's been hot since the day he got there. They are not going to make the record book say anything other than AJ Styles for the X Division Championship. And
So
they've done
AJ Styles has the record for most total title wins in
I
Impact
think
history.
no, I think for the X Division.
Okay.
I don't know about total. That's kind of a difficult thing to figure out. Because I think Angle held everything, right? A couple people held everything. Um, they've done a good job with the knockouts, keeping it fairly in house. Gail Kim's name comes up, Madison Rain's name comes up, uh, Taryn Terrell's name comes up, who's fairly recent. You know, Angelina Love still kind of fairly recent, so they
So I
have
would
a
say
way.
I would say this: whoever asked that question, come back and clarify exactly what you meant in terms of like total title reigns. Like what record are you suggesting? Are you asking what who should break?
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
He also asked why this is exactly verbatim. Why the fuck won't they bring back the Bound for Glory series?
I think that at the time that they originally debuted it, New Japan was not nearly as popular as it is now in America, and we didn't know that that was just their version of the G1. That said, because I didn't even know what the G1 was, but that said, I really liked it. I really liked it, and I remember it being fun. And I still don't watch New Japan, so I don't really care about the G1. I think there's enough fans, but I will say this though: the market that they're catering to, what appears to be the quote unquote AEW fan, is is a Ring of Honor fan and also a New Japan fan. So this target audience, what I believe is the audience that they want, which is the AEW audience, they would very much call out Impact for putting on a tournament that resembles their beloved G1.
Yeah, I think it would be really good for branding Bound for Glory though, and getting people excited and having a road to Bound for Glory and something people can get invested in week to week. Usually the main event for Bound for Glory is like what WWE guy can we get in here to challenge for the title. I mean that's Slammiversary is usually a little more creative with their main events, but Bound for Glory is they try to put the biggest names possible, and I would like to see something. The last time they did it, it was a super watered down tournament. That we just I think EC3 won. We knew he was going to win, and then I thought they dropped the ball by not having him actually beat Lashley for the belt because then everything went downhill for him after that. But that's neither here nor there. But they got to have something, man. Like they've had really good ideas in the past for this kind of stuff, and it just kind of disappears. And that's what TNA was about initially. Like a lot of really um, original ideas, original stuff, innovative ideas, and we just kind of gotten away from that a little bit. But I would like to see them do something to be part of the Bound for Glory brand and the build and get people, excited for the show, So,
Totally agree. Totally agree with that part of it. I got time for one more.
well, I have one more, but it's a very long from Gareth Williams. It's a long one.
Let's see it. Let's see it. Let's try it. Let's see it. Let's see what we got.
Well, how frustrating is it that a section of the fan base can't/don't want to accept Impact's place in history? Budget and exposure wise, the company is light years away from WWE and AEW and has had its fingers burnt by trying to overreach in an attempt to compete in the past. I feel that many are just setting themselves up for disappointment, and they can't accept that the company has ambitions of filling major arenas, even twice a month, of hopes of getting a major TV deal. It would be healthier if everyone accepted that the aim of the company is to solidify its position as a robust number three in a very crowded marketplace. With the back-to-back tapings being what they are, surely it's better to fill a smaller studio or venue than prompt the old LOL TNA nonsense due to photos circulating of rows and rows of empty seats.
All right. So again, I think that that was a long worded question, but it's really not that complicated. I mean, I say it all the time. What Impact is fighting is their perception problem. Like AEW again, they did a show in Raleigh a few weeks ago where they had the entire sections that were on hard camera darkened out because there was nobody there, and I wasn't hearing no LOL AEW. So it's really just all an Impact Wrestling perception thing. They need to go on a marketing blitz. Like they need to focus. They need to make a year-long plan at least to say that we are going to make people recondition themselves that Impact Wrestling is fun, that it's popular, that it's popping, and that it's something that people want to participate in and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think fans do have to come to realization. Every time we see these free agents come out, we see a lot of come to Impact, come to Impact. Like, there's guys we know aren't showing up. Bray Wyatt, Daniel Bryan, Brian Danielson, Braun Strowman. Like, we people have to come to that realization. Like, it's better they just cement themselves as a strong number three brand. ROH was basically a developmental territory for NXT, and while that we don't really want that for Impact, it's their best bet because right now NXT or developmental for AEW almost because that's what I think AEW. I mean Impact may have to embrace a little bit because NXT is not grabbing people from the indies now. Um, so now trying to get to AEW is the goal for a lot of indie wrestlers who are at a certain age, certain place in their career. Yeah, there's a little MLW work you can do, NWA, but Impact right now is in the best place to sign free agents that they've been in a while, but they're not going to get like they can swing for the fences all they want. It's probably not going to happen. AEW is like, hey, we're going to pay you this. Impact's like, hey, we're going to pay you this and give you a cup of decaf coffee. They're just not. So people do have to realize their best bet is to just be like, hey, we want to be a solid but distant number 3. And, you know, they don't have, the show doesn't look and sound like AEW. So, you know, they're not going to get to that level. So people do have to live with that. That's going to do it for us. We got to wrap it up here. We are right at our limit. So thanks for checking us out. Remember, Impact Lounge Engagement Group, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.